afternoon and welcome to track 2 on the very topical and relevant theme, agroecological transition in India, that is curated by GIZ. To introduce the track, I would like to invite Mr. Rajiv Ehel, the Director for Natural Resources Management and Agroecology at GIZ. Over to you, Rajiv.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Good afternoon to everybody, and good day in other parts of the world. On behalf of Indo-German Development Cooperation, I would like to set the session going. Maybe one way is to also share with you the journey that we have.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Good afternoon to everybody.
You'll have to turn off their mics, please.
On behalf of Indo-German Development Cooperation, I would like to set the session going.
What do I have to turn off? Sorry. Oh, okay. I'm only seeing one link here.
What do I have to turn off? Sorry.
Okay, there are two. Should I? Hello, everybody. Sorry, there was a glitch here. It's also because we are in IRMA campus in Anand, Gujarat, and using a borrowed facility from Professor Shamu Prasad. Professor Swine and I have been here as part of the National Conclave on Natural Farming that is organized by Gujarat government, and where we've just come back from a national level address by the Honorable Prime Minister, which was also attended by the Agriculture Minister, Mr. Tomar, also by the Cooperation and Home Minister, Mr. Amit Shah, the Governor of Gujarat, the Chief Minister of Gujarat, and today there was a clear direction given to following natural farming. The call is for ICR institutions, state governments, farmers, all organizations to look at sustainable agriculture, especially natural farming, go back strongly towards soil health management, and really make India's agriculture more compliant to sustainability, also leading to positive impacts on climate change and also the conservation of water. We'll discuss this going forward throughout the day with experts, but just wanted to give you how important today is. This is wonderful synergies that we organize a session on agroecology, and the government of India declares a serious policy intent on moving forward for natural farming. I think it's a good time to also recapitulate the journey of Indo-German Development Cooperation in India. If you look back, it's about 60 years. The German cooperation started in India by working on the aspects of rural poverty. Of course, it was soon understood that if you want to work on poverty in India, you have to work on agriculture. And the work on agriculture started, and by the same time, India was in 64 going through a very tough time of food security. We had just come out of 3 famines, one after the other. The country was dependent on PL 380 grains. It was called ship to mouth. It was a very, very breakup moment as a nation. What happened next was a revolution that we all are aware about, the Green Revolution, where scientists found ways to turn India's land, especially in pockets, into very productive areas of growth. That journey has. We're also a net exporter of many of the crops. Horticulture has exceeded agriculture. Vegetables and fruits are in abundance. So while on one side, we have reached this point of food security, the questions of nutrition security, access to food still remain. Along with this journey, GIZ and German cooperation understood that if you really want to work on agriculture, you need to work on the water part of it, the soil part of it. And so started projects on watershed. These projects were picked up and also mainstreamed nationally by the governments at various levels, by World Bank, by NABARD, and became one ecosystem-based approach towards looking at the entire basis of where agriculture happens. With this came also an understanding that one needed to improve biodiversity. So GIZ started projects on biodiversity. The perils of climate change started visiting India stronger and stronger. And then came a point where we started working on climate change orientation towards looking at how sustainable growth could happen. Work in GIZ also happens on renewable energy to reduce the mitigation impacts. So in this entire journey of working on value chains, on looking at commodities, what we've really understood is that looking at different aspects of nature, farm, and consumption, working with different ministries through different projects created in silos, while that may have been the basis and would continue to be probably the programmatic way of moving forward, what we really need is a strong linkage between the nature, the ecosystem, the watershed, enhancing it, improving it. Only when the water, the ecosystem services from there are available, a good microclimate is available, can a farmers feel really productive. The good soil will be nurtured by good inputs on moisture from the watersheds. So nature connects with farm. On farm, we really have to work very strongly on on-farm sustainability. It has to work on soil health. It has to work on natural farming. It has to look at water, groundwater replenishment. It has to look at ways of doing multiple cropping, creating surplus around the year from the same piece of land, moving into agroforestry, moving into horticulture, moving into mixed crops. And even if you produce and do all of this at scale, all of this is something that the consumer needs to be able to access, believe, trust, so that the safe and healthy food consumed by consumers, first locally, the farmers, the regions where it is grown, and then later on by the urban pockets of India, and also for export, for further income enhancement. So on one side, all the push programs that we do have to connect with the pull side of the market. So this continuum of what we are seeing as nature, farm, and plate is a continuum that we see is an agroecological framework, a narrative that brings us all together. So with these words, I would like to really celebrate the fact that this work is being recognized Mohammed, our cluster coordinator, will speak about how, as the German side, we look at it, what is happening on that side. But I think on the Indian side today, I must say there's a fairly high amount of satisfaction for many of us who've been working on sustainable agriculture to hear from the highest level, from the Prime Minister and from very senior level ministers, a very serious commitment towards going to low chemical, low external input agriculture, creating sustainable and healthy foods. How this would translate into new programs and policies is an area where I think we are very much positioned, available, ready to work on because of this agroecological lighthouse that we want to do with the government of India. So with these words, I would hand it back to Pooja. Over to you.
Thank you, Rajiv, for introducing the delegates to the track and setting the tone for the sessions to follow. Now it is my pleasure to welcome Mr. Mohammad Al Khawad, Program Director and Cluster Coordinator for Environment, Climate Change and Natural Resources Management at GIZ.
Thank you, Pooja. Good afternoon to all participants and for the interest. It's exciting to be part of a panel at the Livelihood India Summit. Good to also see that this nevertheless happens and takes place, although still in virtual format. Yeah, we have an ambitious title, Agroecological Transition in India. Now that is a title that's even more ambitious than what we in GIZ sort of understand under our agroecological approach. We very strongly, of course, see it as a process, as a transformation to take place, and we would want to support it. And we're very happy to be able to do this as GIZ together with the Indian Ministry of Agriculture and Farmers Welfare, who are our partners in this endeavor on the side of the Government of India, but as well also the different states who will be cooperating with us and who will be joining in this endeavor, as well as partners. So thank you. It's a privilege for us to be able to, yes, go this journey together with you. Now, it is, of course, as we all know, not an easy journey. You can have ambitious goals, but you do have to live them in the real world. And Germany is in such a process as well. And I think there will be, in the next couple of years, ample possibility to interconnect between German institutions and Indian institutions to reflect on this and to think in how far one can work together, cooperate together, exchange ideas and experiences, because both are federal states in their composition and both are going into this direction. Rajiv just described. You might know that we recently had elections in Germany, and we have a coalition government, a new prime minister, so to say, chancellor in German, and the parties in this new coalition and government are the Social Democrats, that's the red light or the red color, are the Liberals, that's the yellow color, and are the Greens, and that's the green color they have as a party. And together, it is called a traffic light coalition. So, of course, for us, the question is a bit, is the traffic light on red concerning agroecology? Is it on yellow or is it on green? So let's look a bit at a few aspects. I'd like to look at the government itself. I'd like to look at the coalition agreement. And then I would like to come a bit more into what we are going to do as development cooperation here. If we look at the government and the ministries, the traffic light is on green, I would say, because the German Ministry of Agriculture is now headed by the Green Party. Another important ministry for this discussion and within Germany, but also for international cooperation, is of course, the German Ministry of Environment. They are also headed by a Green party and the green color. So the lights are well placed in that direction. The most important ministry for us and for our cooperation with India is, of course, our Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development. That ministry is led by the Social Democrats, a red party. But formerly, the new minister used to be the environment minister, with a strong focus on climate and with a strong focus on also the aspects that are relevant for us in agroecology. So I am personally very positive that we have a set of institutions and of ministries that will help for us to, yes, further take steps in the right direction. If the basis for the cooperation of this government is an agreement, is a coalition agreement in which the principles, the work program is basically developed, and that's the foundation for the work that's going to happen within the next couple of years. So within Germany, there are already ambitious goals for themselves. Of course, Germany is within the European Union, and a lot is defined by the European Common Agricultural Policy. But nevertheless, member states have room for maneuver. And one objective is that by 2030, 30% of agricultural production should come from organic farming. This is an important goal. And also in Germany, and I presume also in India, it's not an easy goal to work on politically, because you do have competing interests. So the goal there is 30%. That's for German policy in Germany itself, and that will open room for cooperation and exchange with the Indian Ministry of Agriculture on how one has instruments to develop this, approaches to enhance this, and with what challenges is one confronted. If we go a step further and look at the coalition agreement and what they write in development cooperation, then there is a key sentence in it, that food security and access to clean water is to be promoted in development cooperation, and is to be promoted via agroecological approaches or strategies, as well as knowledge and technology transfer for small farmers. That's on page 151. So we want to look at these text parts and keep reminding us that this is the basis on which we can further enhance this cooperation. So these are good signs. Coming to India itself, India is mentioned in the coalition agreement as an important partner in the Indo-Pacific region, and India is mentioned also specifically as a country for an Indo-German partnership agenda that has to be developed, that will be developed. And in this partnership agenda, of course, agroecology will play a strong role. Finally, the government is preparing and is to focus on agroecology and natural resource management. This is an initiative that hopefully will soon come to its fulfillment, together with Indian Ministry of Agriculture and Farmers Welfare. A so-called Lighthouse project has been developed, is in preparation, and will hopefully be signed and agreed upon soon, where a future political commitment is made for agroecology and natural resource management. And with this kind of lighthouse, this enables us all to further mobilize financing possibilities and mobilize technical cooperation possibilities between the two countries. So I think the framework conditions on our side are very good. You are experts on the Indian side of conditions, and I'm sure within the next couple of minutes we will hear more on that side. And yeah, looking very much forward to continuing this cooperation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Al-Khawat, for your welcome address. And now it is my honor and privilege to welcome Shri Prashant Kumar Swain, Additional Secretary, Ministry of Agriculture and Farmers Welfare, Government of India, to deliver his keynote address for this track.
Thank you, Pooja, for introducing me. And first of all, let me also thank Mr. Rajiv Vahal of GIZ India for not only inviting me, but insisting me to participate in this when we are actually part of this Pre-Vibrant Gujarat Summit, which is happening on agriculture and food. Mr. Muhammad Al-Khawat, Cluster Coordinator, GIZ Delhi. So it's nice to have heard you right now. Right now about the Indo-German cooperations and the Lighthouse project. It's a big privilege to be here in any of these programs. Of course, they recently have started looking into this sustainable agriculture, agroecology area, which is pretty interesting, very, very interesting. In fact, I just recently have just taken over and I'm handling this, and I'm working on that Swati project with your GIZ team. Having said this, today, as Rajiv has said, we are listening to Honorable Prime Minister, who was speaking from his heart on this natural farming as a part of the sustainable agriculture development in India. Rajiv, of course, set the tone of why this stemming out of the green revolution, the need for becoming the to ensure food security and to ensure that we are self-sufficient in the food. Of course, he has already said probably from a food deficient way back in 1947. Now probably we are importing. We are one of the largest importer in some of these areas such as rice. We are number one from number 3 in 2015. We are now moved to number 1 in 2021. So similarly, we are the largest producers in rice, wheat, and fruits, vegetables in the world today. So given this, the question is that green revolution, which brought in a lot of benefits to us in terms of food self-sufficiency through the route of basically use of chemical fertilizer, technology, and of course the hybrid inputs, and also the better extension and good irrigation practices. So it has made us self-sufficient, definitely. But then at the same time, we are experiencing certain phenomena around us. One is that probably the market is swing. There is a swing in price in the market. So that is why we are realizing that even if the production has increased for the farmers, the net income needs to be increased. That's one of the area that we are quite concerned in the policy making, which our Honorable Prime Minister has set us on that path of doubling of farmers' income with his clarion call in 2016 February. So it is just not the production per se, it is also the production with income. That's one focus, because you know India, which is having 329 million hectares of area, square kilometer of area, and of which almost half is arable, agricultural land, and of which nearly 24% is the forest land. And we have nearly 14 crore plus farm holdings, where we have the small and marginal farmers who are nearly more than 85%. So that means we have majority of the farmers are small and marginal, less than 2 hectares of land. and where the land fragmentation is increasing with the increasing population. So that is why we have a challenge before us, that when you are using the chemical fertilizer, chemical pesticides, we started from green revolution, or the mechanized farming, the challenge is of today of the soil and the water around us and the ecosystem. We are realizing that the fertility of the soil is point in certain areas of India, even in those places which are earlier called the football of India. We are looking at the saturation, where the farmers were putting more and more fertilizer and chemical pesticides and using more of technology at a higher cost, where the income is not proportionate to that. So we are getting realized more and more that we need to ensure that our fertility of the soil is maintained, our agroecology is in a sustainable way, the biodiversity is in a sustainable way, the water which is getting polluted because of various reasons. One of the reasons probably is the irrigation and use of chemical fertilizers. So that needs to be ensured that our water, groundwater particularly, remains clean and healthy for the entire humanity to consume that. And at the same time, one of the major challenge before us is the kind of greenhouse gas. Definitely, it is a global phenomenon, as you know. And India, under the leadership of Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji, is very, very committed to ensuring reduction in this greenhouse gas. From Paris Agreement 2015, as you must have heard our Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji, and in COP26, where we have actually declaring that has to be net zero emission by 2070. It's not only just a journey, it's a commitment beyond our own, it's a commitment to the entire humanity, in the sense that we need to ensure that the emission level is reduced to that level, which makes the entire ecosystem sustainable. It's a way of life, particularly for us, because if you have to take the agriculture, the livelihood into the further zone. So given this, the basic issue is that of the sustainability of the agriculture, where we are looking at the sustainable agriculture as the kind of self-sustaining system, sustaining the soil, the water, the ecology, the biosphere, in a kind of symbiotic relationship and a very, very healthy development process. So given this, we have a huge task before us. We also look at the UN Sustainable Development Goal, where we are looking at goal number 2 for basically, ending hunger, achieving food security. Also, we look at that goal number 6, that is sustainable management of water and sanitation for all. So if you have to look at this, then there are a lot of issues which are confronting us today. Our soil is getting affected because of the desertification, because of the salinity, because of the acidity, and so on and so forth. And water is getting contaminated. And there is also the pressure of the population, growing population on the land, so which is adding to this problem. And at the same time, there is deforestation in certain patches, which is also a kind of challenge. Our soil organic carbon needs to be maintained at a very, very healthy level. But whereas the chemical method of farming is working against that soil carbon very clearly. Even the fertilizer, that is urea, we find that the kind of emission of the methane from that is quite high. So given this, we are realizing that the agriculture, which is also which is suffering from this greenhouse gas, is also a contributor of the greenhouse gas in both ways. So we need to handle agriculture in such a way that we need to ensure, while ecological balance, we need to ensure reduction in the greenhouse gas while ensuring the farmer's income. So for that reason, the policy perspective that Government of India have been following very clearly, that is directed towards a kind of sustainable agriculture, and under the UN Convention on the Climate Change, that India has got the national innovations on climate change, under which there are 8 missions One of the mission is National Mission for Sustainable Agriculture, that is NAMSA, which has been there with us, and we are working on it. And definitely NAMSA is one which where we are working very steadfastly, very systematically on that. So you have to look at it. There is this beyond this also NAMSA. There are these policies which are very important, which are the contributor to the sustainable development. That is, if you have to look at the policy framework also, the national policy on the farmer of the 2007 is something which is looking at asset reforms in terms of the land, water, livestock, fisheries, bioresources, etc. So definitely that is one of the major policy which, as you know, like India ranks among the top 10 species-rich nations with 4 global biodiversity hotspots in India in different zones. I'm not naming them. We have got about 91,000 animal species. We are, in fact, if you look at it also, India represents about 7% of world's flora and 6.5% of world's fauna. And we have huge plethora of fungi, algae, protozoa, etc., which ensures the soil flora nicely. So our aim is to ensure that reforms have to ensure in terms of land, water, the flora and fauna, and the bioresources to maintain them at a kind of sustainable level. And in addition to this, we have also various other policies of Government of India, food policy, food procurement policy. But I'll also mention one more policy, that is national water policy, because in ensuring of the proper water, conservation of water is a very important issue. As you know, like this green revolution also brought in with a baggage of problem, like we have seen in Punjab, the salinity issues in Punjab, which has actually created a lot of issue in Punjab, where we are now working at the kind of crop diversification to handle this as a strategy to handle that salinity issue in Punjab. And in Maharashtra also, we experimented that particularly in the Vidarbha region, which is a dry and arid region, that's a Vidarbha and Marathwada region. The most of the effective and the proven method was the water use, an efficient use of the water through micro irrigation, etc. So given this, we have also not only the problem area where we are bringing in the policy, we are also working in the kind of solutions which are very, which are local in nature, which are also suitable to that local area, conducive to that local population, to the local farming class, so that they are apt for this thing. So in this series of policy also, we are looking at, as Rajiv has said, the organic farming policies. In 2005 itself, the organic farming policy came, because though they say India is natural farming or even the organic farming. So this, though in between we went from green revolution towards a kind of chemical farming, now there is a move towards chemical-free farming. Of course, definitely Government of India is aware of, conscious of the food security, food self-sufficiency, and what Rajiv has spoken about, right to food. From right today we are almost reaching to a surplus stage where the issue of right to food and right to nutrition is a kind of key issue before us in that domain. Our growth is happening. But the organic food policy of 2005, which is basically to promote the organic farming in India, and subsequently in 2016 there was a task force where this issue of ensuring 10% of the land in India, tillable land, converted to the organic and natural farming. So as you know, like more than 140 million hectares of land is agricultural land in India. So obviously getting onto that of 20% of the land as the kind of organic and natural farming is our objective, stated objective with us, and we are promoting that in that directions. And in this, the other development has been in the after the organic farming, the other developments have been the kind of agroforestry promotion. So whereas the species which are actually the agroforestry species which are there, so we have been promoting them as a kind of additional income to the farmers while ensuring the fixing the fertility of the soil in a complementarity manner and ensuring soil conservation and water conservation. And you'll be happy to know that about 21 states in India have also allowed for the cutting and transmission of these trees, transportation of these trees, these agroforestry trees, so farmers get the required income out of it to fulfill our doubling of farmers' income this thing. Because ours is like sabke saath sabke vikas, and our majority of farmers, I mean, India actually lives in the villages. In fact, 75% of the population depend on the agriculture. And if you have to look at the workforce, about more than 55% of our entire workforce is is in the agriculture and allied sector. So given this importance of the agriculture and contribution to the GDP being almost at the range of 16%, so obviously our focus is to improve the farming class, which is a big this thing. And when you are talking about this agroforestry, we also talk about National Bamboo Mission, where bamboo as a kind of earlier as a plant and now as a grass is being promoted, so that it is easy to grow them outside the forest, because it's cutting the tree in the forest is a little difficult, or the forest produce. So you have reclassified it as the grass outside the forest, so that it becomes easy for the farmers to grow them and then use it as a kind of economic means to do that. While bamboo is also a beautiful carbon sink, which is because of its fast growth and absorbs some of the carbon from the atmosphere through this photosynthetic method. So it can serve as the biggest carbon sink for us for the future. And also the biochar that we are working, particularly that is from general agroforestry wood. Now it is the bamboo biochar, which is now there is intensive research of biochar, which can fix the soil carbon at the same time ensuring the soil conservations, better retention of the water, better retention of the micronutrients. This bamboo biochar can serve as a kind of huge transformational work on that. So given this, the other is the natural farming, which Rajiv spoke about, the Bharatiya Prakritik Krishi Paddhati. As you know, India, of course, is a natural farming country earlier, where actually the on-farm, I mean, the reliance on the on-farm input, because the chemical side, farmer had to buy the chemical fertilizer and the pesticides and use a lot of technology at a high cost, which probably drove him in certain areas of India to the indebtedness. But then there is a realization that if natural farming is there, then probably on-farm management of everything, whether from fertilizer to not the fertilizer, it's a kind of like it's a microorganism at the inoculant management is a very important aspect. So which can be done on farm through Jivamruta, Ghana Jivamruta, Bijamruta. So so one doesn't have to really look outside the farm for its input or other this thing. One desi cow is good enough, as I was listening very intently to Honorable Governor of Gujarat. One desi cow can cater to almost 30 acres of land, which is something which is fabulous. And through the cow dung, the microorganisms that it has got, so using them in a kind of a cyclic manner, so that the soil fertility is maintained, soil organic carbon is maintained, and the earthworms, they manage that entire cycle to make that entire soil fertile. Of course, there is this crop diversification, crop rotations, water conservations, so on and so forth in the natural farming, where we heard today, where we in this 3-day seminars, we heard the confirmation from various scientists who are working on this, that the productivity remains good. I mean, it's not a challenge that was being portrayed by many in the media, but it actually addresses that potentially the productivity issue very clearly, while ensuring agroecology in that. And many of the states, which those that Subhas Palekar led zero-based natural farming system was experimented in Karnataka. Now Andhra Pradesh has moved ahead. very intensively in that community-based natural zero-based farming, where GIZ is working intensively with the APRIAs, that's an organizations of the government of Andhra Pradesh, to bring up this natural farming in a sustainable agroecology practice platform. The people, where they're experimenting this. And now, of course, this particular natural farming is gone to different states, such as Himachal Pradesh, Haryana, we see Gujarat. Today, we heard that in Gujarat, one district that is called Dang district has been declared as to be converted to fully natural farming district. That's first in the country. And it's a very exciting news we heard from today from Honorable Chief Minister and Honorable Governor themselves. So they have declared this. And so that means the future of this, we are in the directions where we are actually going towards a kind of agroecology and conservation process, where ensuring biodiversity is a kind of new norm, evolving norm for us, where GIZ is working with us, and GIZ has now entered into kind of partnership with us on the Swati project, which is for the sustainable agroecology transformation project, where we'll be working with the states to take it forward very clearly. And I'm very happy, as listening very intently, Mr. Mohammed, when he spoke about the German government, even if there is a change, so there is a change towards green. And that green symbolizes something very, very progressive in this direction. So we are very lucky. And in the agenda, a political agenda that Mr. Mohammed has spoken, that India stands at a very high level. And definitely the agroecology also as a subject is a very important subject for this party now in power, in a new party in power in Germany. We are very, very happy. And I am sure that the Indo-German relationship will be going from strength to strength. It will be deepened further. And it will be one of the finest relationship that will be demonstrating to the entire world how India and Germany stand for that agroecology transformation and in agriculture, and ensuring the agriculture sustainable in the long run, and ensuring that this entire universe remains at a kind of greenhouse gas free kind of universe for the future, so that the entire humanity can sleep in the night without any botherations for tomorrow. And I thank all my viewers for this, and the Government of India is committed to this, taking further this sustainable agriculture, and we are working towards it. Thank you all of you for listening to me here in Anand from the venue of the exhibition and the venue of this Pre-Vibrant Summit. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir, for sharing your vision and Government of India thinking on policy covering natural resources management, natural farming, organic farming, and ZBMNF, amongst other approaches. With this, we've come to the conclusion of the introductory session of this track, and we'll just take a very short break for 5 minutes before we come back to the first session of this track. So please stay tuned in.